This past 4th of July, America celebrated a historic milestone, 250 years of independence. Many people, including me, have talked about what has gone on in those eventful 250 years, reminiscing about America's historical achievements over the centuries. However, not as many people are asking, what will the next 250 years bring for the United States? Will the USA even make it to 500 years of existence? Well, I plan to discuss some of those questions with y'all in the following video. I will cover some issues that we may encounter, new and old. The country is going to inevitably change as the march of time continues on. When people think of change within the country, their minds often go to political change. It is a part of the American identity. In one of my last videos discussing the future, I mentioned that the advancement of technology has brought up the debate over what reforms does the Constitution need in order to satisfy the needs of our time, or do we even need to make any reforms at all? Personally, I think it is high time that the law of the land is updated to accommodate all of the changes that have occurred since the Founding Fathers walked the earth 25 decades ago. In no particular order, I decided to list some grievances that have emerged in the first 250 years that will need to be addressed in the next 250 years. For my first complaint, I'm going to start from my hometown of Tucson, Arizona. As a resident of Tucson, the outrage around the delay in Adelita Grijalva's swearing in was noticeable. After all, it took 50 days before she was sworn in. Meanwhile, after South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham's passing, his sister was quickly sworn in after just a couple of days. Many people have brought up the double standard, claiming that there is discrimination depending on who is being sworn in. I think the other major point this situation brings up is the fact that travel has changed how quickly someone can get between two locations over a long distance. During the early days of the United States of America, even in the developed areas on the East Coast, it took months for someone to travel from, say, Georgia to the national capital. It made sense that there wasn't a specific time limit set for when politicians needed to be sworn in. In 2025, a flight from Tucson, Arizona to Washington, D.C. roughly took around 6 to 7 hours. Assuming that the weather is cooperative, there are no delays, and the layover goes well. Now, I can maybe understand the argument that no one should be sworn in right away. Perhaps it was a close election, or the opposing side wants to seek legal mediation before they feel comfortable ratifying the results. However, at most, a process like that should only take a couple of weeks. The winning candidate in the special election should be sworn in after 30 days. And if congressional leadership doesn't want to go forth with the formalities of placing your hand on the Bible and repeating the words uttered by the person doing the swearing in, then that candidate should automatically be sworn in. I think that is a perfect compromise between allowing some time for election verification by counting officials while not allowing congressional leadership to abuse their power by keeping a rightfully elected member of the body from entering the chamber and executing the duties of their offices. There is a similar problem for presidential inaugurations. In the past, inaugurations were actually later in the year around March, so it's not unprecedented or constitutional blasphemy to consider a change like this. I think Inauguration Day should be moved up to New Year's Day. New year, new government. Election Day should be a federal holiday and be held on November 10th. If candidates don't reach 50%, the top two will compete in a runoff on December 1st. This will leave enough time for election officials to properly count close races, perform recounts, and settle any legal issues as well. This would cut the time from election night to inauguration down from around 75 to 80 days to 50 days. Election season should also be shortened. In the 19th century, it would take a candidate months to visit each state in the country on the campaign trail. The ability to share ideas and campaign pledges was limited. The massive increase in different modes of media has exposed Americans to so much more of the candidate and what occurs on the campaign trail. By the time primary day or the actual election arrives, many voters already report being burned out by the months-long campaign. This presents an argument of what should be prioritized when running an election: the freedom to begin a campaign as early as possible before an election, or keeping voter engagement up during election season to ensure maximum participation in a democratic republic such as ours. The world is in constant flux. The situation domestically and internationally can change by the minute. Media reporting constant live updates on what is going on in any given part of the globe. If each day brings so much variation, think about what goes on to influence voter decisions from March all the way to November. The national mood may be different in October than it was in April. To sum it all up, I think America in the future is going to shorten its election cycle to decrease burnout and increase participation. Another issue that has afflicted much of the country, but also where I previously lived in Lawrence, Kansas, is gerrymandering. You can be forgiven if you don't know much about the Kansas political landscape. To put it briefly, Lawrence is the opposition capital in a Republican-dominated state. In order to put the opposition in a more untenable situation, the people in charge of drawing the Sunflower State's congressional districts decided to draw a map that put Lawrence in the same congressional district as Western Kansas, one of the most conservative districts in the country. This may not be a big issue if it weren't for the fact Lawrence is geographically on the other side of the state. This map was challenged in court and struck down. However, district map drawers just came up with a map that achieved the same objective, but looked slightly less dubious. This is but one of many examples of gerrymandering carried out by both parties in states across the country, an issue that has plagued U.S. elections basically since the nation's founding. It is a problem that has only grown and become more complex as geography has gotten more expansive, voting rights expanded, and the emergence of a more diverse electorate, especially with the battle over midterm redistricting going on in several states across the country. This is an issue that will need to be confronted. Personally, I think each state should have an independent commission that draws each district to ensure the most fair elections, and that any mid-decade redistricting should be prohibited except for special circumstances. Revolutionary for its time, the Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights, and the rest of the Constitution listed out basic rights that every person the Founding Fathers believed was entitled to. However, I think in the 21st century, that list of rights is going to expand. Now, are these going to be enshrined in the Constitution? Probably not, but there is definitely going to be legislation written to codify these rights into law. This video wasn't made to argue how many rights should be guaranteed. I just think that American views on what each citizen is entitled to will change and grow as the years and decades pass by in the 21st century. I think society's reliance on electricity is something that the Founding Fathers could have never conceived. A technology that emerged nearly a century after the signing of the Declaration of Independence. An experimental, poorly understood product of Mother Nature that only intellectuals like Ben Franklin dabbled with. However, it would come to dominate lives across the globe in the years to come. Our economy and daily life depend on the constant supply of electricity. I think electricity and energy are going to be a bigger priority for our government. A growing population, energy-intensive industries like space travel, and data centers will increase the demand for electricity. There will be a growing call for the government to guarantee that Americans will have access to electricity. Increase not only access but also production. The U.S. will need to pivot away from fossil fuels and invest more in renewable energy. Nuclear fusion will also be receiving more attention as new breakthroughs make the technology more accessible. An update to its energy grid will also be required. Now, does that set the precedent for making other technologies like the internet a universally guaranteed right? Critics of policies like this ask, where does it stop? I'm not sure, but I'm sure it will be a topic that will be debated in the future. As the infrastructure to support energy begins to age and buckle under the pressures of a growing population, data centers demand, and climate change, I'm sure a guarantee to have access to electricity will become more important in the future. Air travel basically didn't exist during the time of America's founding. However, the U.S. has been at the forefront of engineering for air and space travel. American laws will need to be updated to comply with future international space laws and space treaties. Americans in the future will have to stop and consider how they want to colonize the cosmos, differently than how previous generations of Americans expanded, colonized, and settled territory. At least at the time of this video, future explorers will not have to worry about encountering any extraterrestrial indigenous flora and fauna, or any advanced civilization. However, a bigger emphasis will be put on being greater stewards of the environment, as well as having a deeper respect for the land belonging to the future lunar planet that is going to be colonized. There are numerous examples of past forays into the American frontier ending in disaster, whether from Indian raids, lack of knowledge of the land, or a failure to adequately prepare for the arduous journey. Future exploration missions will ensure that the individuals undertaking the journey will be safe and ultimately stay alive at the end of their missions. Future American administrations will have to consider the rights of astronauts working and residing in other places in the solar system other than Earth. Planners of these missions will make sure that the crews carrying out these missions are diverse across a wide array of traits. The crew members and leadership will be guided by science and lucrative economic opportunities, and not necessarily religious or political beliefs. I think this is how future exploration missions carried out by Americans will be undertaken. There has been much debate about who within our government should be allowed to make decisions regarding military action and how quickly these decisions should be made. The Constitution states that only Congress gets to declare war. Additional legislation has been enacted since then that requires the president to seek approval from Congress if they want the military to continue to conduct operations after 90 days. Proponents of presidential military power claim that nowadays, military decisions need to be made on the fly. In the late 18th century, armies moved only as quickly as their cavalry and infantry would allow them to. An event that comes to mind is the Battle of New Orleans during the War of 1812. U.S. forces led by Andrew Jackson decisively defeated the British, weeks after both sides signed the Treaty of Ghent, ending hostilities between the two countries. See, it took about 1 to 2 months to sail across the Atlantic, depending on weather conditions and ocean currents. Then, it took several more weeks to deliver the news of an armistice on horseback across the North American landscape to the generals on the battlefield in New Orleans. By then, it was too late for the lives lost in that battle. However, today in 2026, global leaders can post news of an attack on social media, instantly delivering a message of war to the whole world. Not only has communication gotten faster on the political and diplomatic end, it has gotten faster for the military end as well. Commands can be quickly given over radio, and the results of military action can also be received quickly as well. Aircraft can perform reconnaissance missions and report on their findings back to high command on radio. The president and their supporters may point this fact out when confronted with the argument that Congress is too slow to respond to foreign policy questions. They may tend to agree. Why wouldn't they? And in certain situations, I could agree with them. Perhaps a possible compromise may be to create a separate foreign policy council whose job it is to respond to international crises that require immediate attention, while Congress can debate at a later date the scale of involvement. I envision this council being made up of 6 members that are a mix of 3 non-elected positions appointed by Congress at the start of the new Congress, while the other 3 members will face national elections every 4 years like the president. The president will be the tie-breaking vote. For example's sake, we will discuss the drug boats in the Caribbean. Under this new system, the president wouldn't be able to order airstrikes on these boats. However, the military advisors warn that a decision needs to be made quickly because the boats are rapidly approaching U.S. shores. Within 15 minutes, the president approaches the council and proposes his plan to launch airstrikes against drug boats. After brief deliberation, the council approves the president's plan on a 4-2 vote. However, Congress still has the authority to override the Foreign Policy Council after 90 days if the political body doesn't approve of the president's or the council's decision. In my proposal, representatives from Congress and the people still get to have a word on military action ordered by the president, while at the same time ensuring the American response is unified, quick, and forceful. Drone warfare, the incorporation of AI into the military, and the fact that some militaries just have a really sound and efficient command structure that can make decisions quickly, and sometimes America will need to respond in kind. Others in the past have just gone ahead and demanded that any war be brought to a national popular vote. However, I don't see that happening ever, and it doesn't solve the issue of what to do when confronted with a military question that needs an answer right away. This is but one idea that I have brainstormed. How do you think this question should be solved? While the Industrial Revolution defined America's first 250 years, I think AI, computers, and robotics will come to define the next 250 years. Thank you for tuning into this video. The first 250 years has showcased a complex history of tragedy and triumph. Hopefully, the next 250 years of American history will showcase the best that we as Americans have to offer. We will put our differences aside, prioritize individual well-being, focus on advancing science and energy production, and literally shoot for the stars. What do you think the next 250 years will have in store for the United States? Will the U.S. be around till 2276? Feel free to leave your opinions below. At last, I just want to give a quick reminder, and don't forget to like and subscribe.